discussing about foundations of group decision making, and the learning objective here is to gain a thorough understanding of how individuals working in a group or a team setting make decisions using different techniques. And we will define about what is group, a formal group and informal group, and then further we will discuss about the subclassifications of groups and discuss how groups take decisions. So, coming back to the definition of group, group is a when two or more individuals interact and interdependent. They are two individuals are interacting and they are independent, who have come together to achieve a particular objective. Then there is a formal group and informal group. What is a formal group? Which is defined by organization structure with designated work assignments establishing the task. So, what is informal about it? Alliances that are neither within the formal structure nor defined by the organizations. They appear naturally in response to the needs of the social contact, deeply affect behavior and performance. So, it is noticed that individuals have a tendency to interact with other individuals based on their personal liking, based on their some kind of common interest. So, an informal group is when individuals have a tendency to interact, tendency to affiliate to other individuals based on their some kind of common interest, maybe some interest of their own, maybe based on their belongingness to a particular region, their interest in a particular knowledge domain. So, there are informal groups as well as formal groups in organizations. What is a formal group? Formal group and its classifications. What are the subclassifications? Formal group can be command group and task group. What is a command group? A group which is composed of individuals who report directly to a manager. So, there is a direct report, and there is a task group which is those individuals working together to complete a job or a task for an assignment, for a project in an organization, but there is no hierarchical boundaries. So, in a task group, as in contrast to the command group, in a task group the individuals work in a group because of the nature of the task. Their task is something which binds them together, and there is the task in an organization, but there is no hierarchical boundary or formality. But in a command group, individuals work in a group which is due to their affiliation to that, or a group composed of individuals who report directly to a manager. So, there is hierarchy involved in this command group. Then moving to the next group, that is informal group and its classification. Informal group is, as we discussed earlier, is one where individuals affiliate to a group or a social structure based on their commonality or common interest or their association or affiliation in a particular region, and there are two subcategories. One is interest group and friendship group. Interest group is members work together to attain a specific objective, like say somebody is interested in sightseeing, they will join together and they go for that trip. And if some people have an interest for music, they join together and they have some meeting which is based on their personal interest. Friendship group is one where individuals brought together, they are brought together because they share one or more common characteristics. They have a similar trait or characteristic, so they form a friendship group. Interest group, members work together to attain a specific objective with each of them is concerned. And then next we will discuss about what is a committee. A committee is a group of persons to whom as a group some matter is committed. They have a commitment, they have a task at hand. So, they work, the individuals associated with the committee, like there are different committees. One is one which works for quality improvement, one which works for gender diversity and inclusion, one which works for improvement of performance, performance management team. So, there are different committees in the organization which have some common element, or which have some the people associate with that committee to accomplish the task. Similar to the board, commission, task force, team, self-managing team, self-managed work groups or autonomous work groups, there are several committees in the organizations. They are formal, informal, permanent or temporary in nature. What are the reasons of using committees and groups? Group deliberation and judgment. These individuals who are working in the group, they deliberate and take decisions collectively. There is fear of too much of authority in a single person in a committee, and representation of interested groups. Then coordination of departments, plans, policies, transmission and sharing of information, consolidation of authority, motivation through participation. So, committees and groups, they deliberate on decisions, they deliberate and take decisions collectively. There is fear of too much of authority in a single person, and representation of interested groups and coordination of departments, plans. These committees are not formed in one department, but there is a interfunctional interdependence of various departments. So, suppose a disciplinary action is to be taken. If there would not be any representation from one particular department. So, department A will have one representative, there will be a department B will have one representative in the committee. So, the disciplinary committee or the quality improvement committee or any kind of say structural reforms committee will have representations from different departments. So, all the departmental representatives will be part of departmental representatives are part of that committee, part of the committee to take say for quality improvement, for cost management or say for performance improvement. So, there could be several objectives of each of these, and to avoid any kind of authority with a single person, there would be representation of so many people in the committee. Transmission and sharing of information, and there is equal dissemination of information across the committee members. There would be say no hoarding of information, consolidation of authority and motivation through participation. And this, the committee having representation from different departments, different knowledge domains will only effectively function when there is a consensus in decision making, when there is motivation through participation, when everybody contributes ideas, there would be say everybody sees that his idea is being recognized. So, there is an inner sense of motivation, intrinsic motivation, which would lead to the engagement of the members of the committee to work collectively for the committee. And what is the definition of a team? A team is a small number of people with contemporary skills who are committed to a common purpose, set of performance goals and approach for which they hold themselves mutually accountable. A self-managed team, it is a group with members who have a variety of skills which need to be carried out to relatively complete a task. So, a self-managed team is a group with members who have variety of skills, who have different levels of competencies. They need to execute tasks to complete the entire assignment or the task. There can be a virtual team, a project team. So, there are different types of teams. Virtual team is one which where members are not in the same location, they are geographically dispersed, they do not report to the manager or the nodal agency, and they may not even work for the organization. So, why people join groups? People join groups basically for security, for status, for self-esteem, for a purpose of affiliation, power, achievement of goal, etc. Next, we will discuss about 5 stages of group development model. There are largely there are different stages, 5 stages in general: pre-stage, that is first stage, then forming, storming, norming, performing and adjourning. So, in all these stages you will see there are differences. What is that? The 5 stages of group development process. The first stage, the members of the group get to know each other. Here in the pre stage, if we can see, the people are, there are different arrows, that means people are not known to each other, they have just joined the group and they are yet to know each other. They have they are hailing from different departments, from different places, and there is no kind of, say, first there is no ice breaking being done. In the second stage, you will see slowly people get to know each other. Storming stage, the members of the group determine the objective of the meeting. They get to know, a person or the facilitator would introduce them to the problem. So, there are, in this phase there are more likely chances of conflict arising, because people differ in their ideas, they have not known each other properly, there would be differences in opinion, there would be personality clashes, interpersonal issues and communication issues. So, which are the preliminary say teething problems in the group formation process, and the groups determine the objective. The earlier the objective was not known, but when the group was formed or in the storming stage, the facilitator would let them know about the objective of the or purpose of the meeting. Then in the norming stage, the groups agree on norms, certain behavior, as in the after the pre stage and in the in the storming stage, when there are differences in opinion and there would be likely chances of conflict. So, there, to reduce the conflict, to reduce the ambiguity, there has to be some norms and behavior. So, norming stage, the group norms are being set to guideline or to streamline the behavior of the people through some rules and regulations. Performing stage is when the group becomes functional. Group starts working on the assignment given. Adjourning stage is one where in temporary groups characterized by concern with wrapping up activities rather than performance. Last stage is the groups, when they accomplish the task, they start adjourning, they start wrapping up. So, these are 5 stages of group formation. Critics of the 5 stage model, there are also, as every good thing will have some critical observations or critics. Similarly, the stages, the critics of the 5 stages model, they state that groups becomes more effective as it progresses through the first to 4 stages. For the first 4 stages, not always true. Group behavior is complex, high levels of conflict may be conducive to high performance. The process is not always linear and several stages may occur simultaneously and groups may regress. So, the critics say that it is not necessarily that the group, every group will have to have the 5 stages, and the progress is not very linear, and there would be several phases of conflict and the group behavior becomes more complex and ignores the organizational context. So, these are some critical aspects of the group behavior. An alternative model for group formation, it states that temporary groups with deadlines do not follow the 5 stage model. There is a punctuated equilibrium model. What is that? Temporary groups under deadlines go through transitions between inertia and activity. At halfway point, they experience an increase in productivity. What are the sequence of actions? Setting the group direction, first phase of inertia, halfway point transition, major changes, second phase of inertia and accelerated activity. So, this is how the punctuated equilibrium model works. The group is being given direction, then there would be some kind of inertia or movement, and halfway point transition, there would be some transition or certain internal crises or external factors which may create some kind of transition, and then there would be some major changes and the second phase of inertia may emerge, and then the activities may start. So, it states that there is not necessarily a 5-stage model of group formation to be followed. Then what are the group characteristics or properties? Group performance depends on the group roles. The roles are to be well defined. Who is to do what? Then there are some norms, rules, regulations, guidelines to be set to effectively help the group members perform. Status, there is a status being accorded to the group, and the size also should be decided. It should not be enormously large, but there is a requirement of having people within a specific range, say 5 to 10 people in a group. There has to be cohesiveness. So, let us go go to each one of them in more details. Role means a set of expected behavior pattern attributed to someone occupying a given position in a social unit. What is role? Role is a set of expected behavioral pattern attributed to someone who is occupying a given position. Then what is role identity? Certain attitude and behavior consistent with a role. Role perception, what is role identity? The attitude and behavior which is consistent with a role. For example, a teacher is supposed to have a certain behavior to be followed, behavior and attitude. A doctor is a role which will have some kind of exhibited behavior and attitude. Manager is a role and he is supposed to exhibit some well defined, predefined behavior and attitude and behavior and attitude which is consistent with his role. Role perception, what is perception? An individual's view about how he or she is supposed to act in a given situation received by external stimuli. So, an individual has a perception about the roles exhibited by him, how he or she is supposed to behave, to act in a particular situation. If a person is a teacher, so whether he should, how he should behave, that he should be patient, he should have say subject knowledge. So, it speaks about the person's behavior and attitude, what attitude he should have a positive attitude, and so such kind of. So, every role has certain definition. Role perception means an individual's view about how he is supposed to behave in a particular situation, supposed to act in a given situation. It is received by the external environment or external stimuli. Role expectation, each role will have its own expectation, how others believe a person should behave in a given situation. It speaks about how society expects an individual to exhibit certain traits, certain behavior and attributes. So, how others? Psychological contract is an unwritten agreement that sets out mutual expectations of management and employees. Then role conflict, when there is a conflict between the role expectation and the role perception, a situation in which an individual is confronted by divergent role expectations, when there are several roles which a person may exhibit. So, there is likely chance of getting a conflict. Then norms, we will discuss about what are norms. Norms are acceptable standards of behavior within the group that are shared by the group members. The classes of norms: performance norms, appearance norms, social arrangement norms and allocation of resource norms. What is performance norms? What is the acceptable level of work? What is appearance? What to wear and what not to wear? Many organizations have well defined dress code for employees, and so that shows their appearance, how they should appear, how they should be represented and how they should be greeting. So, there is an appearance norm. Social arrangement norms, the friendship and the like. So, what is the kind of social structure, what is the kind of arrangement, how they greet, how they behave. Allocation of resources norm, distribution and assignments of jobs and material. So, group norms and the Hawthorne studies. A series of studies have been undertaken by Elton Mayo at Western Electric Company, Hawthorne plant in Chicago. So, this time period they have taken they have carried out a study and there is a conclusion like workers' behavior and sentiments were closely related to each other when they work in a closed group. Group influence, that is, norms were significant in affecting individuals' behavior. Group standards were effective in establishing individuals' performance, and money was less a factor in determining the performance or output than were the group standards, sentiments and security. So, this group performance and group behavior has been assessed by Elton Mayo in his exhaustive study on the Western Electric Company's Hawthorne studies. And group norms and behavior, the conformity, reference groups, and like I would like to state that what is conformity? Gaining acceptance by adjusting one's behavior to align with the norms of the group. Sometimes people try to adjust themselves, their own behavior according to the group's expectation, group norms. What is reference group? Important groups to which individuals belong or hope to belong to, and with whose norms individuals are likely to conform. So, then defining the norms, deviant workplace behavior. Some people have a tendency to break away from the group's norms. So, that is called deviant behavior. Deviant workplace behavior, also called antisocial behavior or workplace inclivity. Voluntary behavior that violates significant organizational norms, and in doing so threatens the well-being of organizations. In the somewhere in the decision making process, we discussed about ethics in decision making, and we also discussed about protecting the interest of the people who have like the whistleblowers, who generally do good to collective good to people on large. So, this is a kind of voluntary behavior that violates significant organizational norms. In doing so, they threaten the well-being of the organization. The typology, the deviant behavior is production deviance, property deviance, political deviance and personal aggression. Like organizations, production deviance and property deviance, damaging and stealing, political deviance is favoritism and gossip, and personal aggression is act of sexual harassment. So, group influence on deviant behavior. How does a group influence the deviant behavior? The group norms can influence the presence of a deviant behavior. Group norms can identify, like as I discussed earlier, the whistleblowers. The group may be involved in a type of decision which the person who may not be comfortable with. The person may feel that this particular decision may be detrimental for the organization and also the society. The group can influence the person, can influence the presence of a deviant behavior, can help him take decisions appropriately. Simply belonging to a group increases the likelihood of deviance, and being in a group allows individuals to hide, create a false sense of confidence that will not be caught. So, there are some influences, group influence on deviant behavior. Then status, a socially defined position or rank given to a group or group members by others. It differentiates group members. There is an important factor in understanding the behavior, and it is a significant motivating factor. Status characteristics theory says that status derived from one of three sources. One is power, ability to contribute to group goals, and the third one is personal characteristics. Power a person has over others, ability to contribute to group goals, personal characteristics. Then status effects. On norms and conformity, high status members are less restrained by norms and pressure to conform. Some levels of deviance is allowed to high status members so long as it does not affect the group goal achievement. On group interaction, or high status members are more assertive, their large status differences limit diversity of ideas. Equity, if status is perceived to be inequitable. It will result in various forms of corrective behavior. Groups size, group size also affects their behavior. 12 or more members is a large group, 7 or fewer is a small group. So, best use of a group is we should not be having a larger group as well as too much smaller group. The problems with increase in or larger groups is social loafing, like tendency of individuals to expend less effort when working closely collectively than when working individually. Then caused by equity concerns and diffusion of responsibility. Then managerial implications is build in individual accountability, prevent social loafing by setting group goals, increase intergroup competition, evaluation, peer evaluation, distribute group rewards. Cohesiveness, degree to which members are attracted to each other and are motivated to stay in the group. To increase cohesiveness, make the group smaller, encourage agreement with the group goals, increase status and admission difficulty, give rewards to the group members not individuals, physically isolate the group, stimulate competition with other groups. Then individuals group decision making versus individual choice. Group strengths are generate more complete information and knowledge, offer increased diversity of views and greater creativity, increase acceptance of decision, generally more accurate and but not as accurate as the most accurate group member, and group's weaknesses are time consuming, conformity pressures, discussions can be dominated by few members, situation of ambiguous responsibility. Then group decision making phenomena. What is group think and group shift? There are two major phenomena in a group. Situations where group pressures for conformity deter the groups from critically appraising unusual, minority or unpopular views. It hinders in performance. Group shift is when discussing a given set of alternatives and arriving at a solution, group members tend to exaggerate the initial positions that they have told. This causes a shift to more conservative or more risky behavior. So, what are the symptoms and of group think and how to minimize? Group members rationalize any resistance to assumptions they have made. Members apply direct pressure on those who express doubts about shared views or who question the alternatives favored by the majority. Members who have doubts or differing points of views keep silent about misgivings, and there appears to be an illusion of unanimity. How to minimize group think? Reduce the size of the group to 10 or less, encourage group leaders to be impartial, appoint a devil's advocate who can question each and every aspect in the group, use exercise on diversity and group decision making techniques. What are the various group decision making techniques? So, what we have discussed so far, we discussed about the group's formation, we discussed about the various characteristics of the group and how an ideal group should be like, and we also discussed about the biases in decision making like group think and group shift, and further moving on to group decision making techniques. Group decision making, as we have seen in the decision making, individual decision making is succumb to some biases, personal biases, some perception biases. So, it is always good to have more number of people or maybe a group or a team to be effectively taking decisions. So, what is the effective decision making technique? Made in interacting groups where members meet face to face and reply on verbal and non-verbal communication. The most common methods are interacting groups, Delphi techniques and nominal group technique. Interacting group, or we can also say as a brainstorming session, existing functional departments, regular work teams, standing committees or newly designated groups, task force or newly constituted is asked to take a decision. So, it is called an interacting group the teams, new committees, ad hoc teams, they are asked to make decisions. The group members talk about themselves, argue, agree, and from internal coalitions and so forth. Finally, some deliberations and the group then takes decision. Advantage is that new idea generation and promote understanding. Disadvantage is organizational politics can spoil the process. There are some alternative ways of taking decisions. One such method is Delphi technique. The Delphi procedure solicits inputs from a panel of experts who contribute individually. The first step in using Delphi procedure is to obtain the cooperation of a panel of experts. The response are collected and average is done, and experts are asked to again ask for another prediction. Experts are provided, experts who provided unusual or extreme predictions may be asked to justify, and these explanations may then be relayed to other experts, and when the predictions stabilize, the average predictions is taken to represent the decision of the group of experts. Moving further, there is a last point that we would be discussing, which is called the nominal group decision making technique. Nominal group decision making technique are brought together when in a face to face setting and outline the problem to them. The group members are asked to write down many alternatives, as many alternatives they can write, and the members then state their ideas, which are recorded on a flip chart, and as an after all the alternatives have been listed, more open discussion is invited and group members then vote, order the various alternatives. The highest ranking alternative represents the decision of the group. The managers retain the authority to accept or reject the group decisions. Comparing nominal group technique with the Delphi technique members are not located in one place, they are geographically dispersed. The decision is a compilation of the information provided by the group members, and the interpreter understands, rationalizes and interprets the information based on his or her understanding. Interpreter is a facilitator in the Delphi technique. Group decision making technique, on the other hand, the members are brought together. There is a face to face meeting of the members and not geographically dispersed, and members are asked to give their views or present their ideas, as many alternatives they want, and the alternatives are being ranked. The alternatives are given some weightage. The members then state their ideas and it is recorded on a flip chart. All the alternatives are then evaluated and an open discussion takes place. So, all these after this the group decision making, the techniques, what are the advantages and disadvantages? Advantages are more information and knowledge is available, more alternatives are likely to be generated, more acceptance of the final decision, enhanced communication of the decision may result, better decisions generally emerge. Disadvantages are the process takes longer than individual decision making, so it is also costlier, compromise decisions resulting from indecisiveness, one person may dominate the group and group think may occur. And evaluation of effectiveness criteria, number and quality of ideas. In this discussion, what I have discussed is how the group is formed and the stages of group formation, and we discussed about different types of groups. Then further we discussed about the properties of the group, and then we discussed what are the norms, what is the norms and behavior to be followed in a group, and group the various characteristics like the size, status and the group decision making criteria, group think, group shift, and further we discussed about how groups can effectively take decisions with the help of interactive groups or interacting groups, Delphi groups and nominal groups. These are three different types of decision making techniques. Thank you.